do you think that will look like?
It's good to be back. Yes, I'm sure you all saw the title and thought, wait, what happened to Ratchet and Clank? Don't worry, it's coming. But before that, I want to find myself something relaxing to play. I wonder what I can find on my laptop. Let's see. Doki Doki Literature Club. Looks like a visual novel of some sort. Oh, it's free? Well, sign me up!
2 hours later.
Every day, I imagine a future where I can be with you. Ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba-ba. Ba-ba-da-ba-da-ba-ba. Let me take you back to 2017. Horror games are plentiful, and everybody is getting a piece of that pie. There is one particular game that sticks out compared to everything else here. This game is a visual novel created by Team Salvato, and it is known as Doki Doki Literature Club. At first glance, this is your average everyday cute girl visual novel that you see every other day on Steam. But keep playing, and that tide turns real quick. The story involves you taking control of the main character of this game. By the way, I named him John, which is my name, but for all intents and purposes, I'm just gonna call him MC. So MC is walking to school with his childhood friend Sayori. They get talking about joining clubs, and MC tells Sayori he's joining the anime club. Sayori convinces him to join the literature club, where he meets 3 new girls. The tall purple-haired yandere is Yuri, the short pink-haired tsundere is Natsuki, and then we have the club president, the cute, athletic, and smart student Monica. The goal is to write poems for the girl you're trying to impress. On the left, you see little chibi stickers of Sayori, Natsuki, and Yuri. Clicking one of the words will cause one of them to jump up and down. Whoever likes your poem the most will determine who you hang out with during that day. After 3 poems, you then get to choose who you want to help with festival preps. You then meet and comfort Sayori, mainly because earlier she admitted to being depressed. It's festival day, and no Sayori, so MC goes back after seeing her poem, and enters her house up to her bedroom. Giggle. Papa. Nibble. Skirt. Strawberry. Games. Before we go any further, what you are about to see is very disturbing and will make this video age restricted. Also, we'll be stepping into spoiler territory, so if you are extremely sensitive to graphic scenes or don't want anything spoiled for you, I highly recommend that you stop watching this video right now. This is your warning. You have been warned. Okay, now that we got that out of the way, let's gently open the door. And folks, it only gets weirder from here. I'll try not to spoil too much, as I highly encourage everybody to try it out for themselves. It is free, you know. We encounter more weird shit, Yuri commits suicide, and Monica takes over. We delete Monica's character file and she resets the game. Everything returns to normal, just without Monica. Sayori becomes the new president, which means she is self-aware, and Monica deletes everything before any more damage could be done. The game ends with one last poem from Monica. Fun shit. Kawaii. Lollipop. Play. Shit. The message this game is trying to convey is that you can never judge a book by its cover. Open it up and see what it really has in store. This game hits that nail perfectly with all the subtle things that take place after Sayori's death. Oh my god! The one thing I probably would comment on with this game is that the horror factor doesn't kick in until about 3 or 4 hours in. But what balances that out is everything leading up to it. Throughout your first playthrough, the game's events give you that uneasy feeling in your gut that something's fishy here, so you keep playing because curiosity always wins. That's what I love about this game. There's more to this than cute 2D waifus. Seriously, get your mind out of the gutter. It's the little details that keep this game relevant to this day. And now we finally have something to look forward to, because Doki Doki Literature Club Plus will be releasing in a couple weeks, and it'll be releasing on consoles in addition to PC. I can't wait to return to this world of psychological horror. For now, it's time to conclude our journey. I'd like to close out this review by saying I absolutely love this game. The unease you feel every time you play this game is the most intriguing thing about it, in my opinion. I know there are a lot of sick freaks who will disagree with that statement, but that's my takeaway, because I try not to focus on the two obvious attention grabbers. If you're somebody who has not yet experienced this game, I highly recommend it, especially to anyone who likes psycho horror games. Marshmallow. Puppy. Party. Ah, shit. Raindrops. Fuck. Poof. With all that being said, I'm giving Doki Doki Literature Club a 7 out of 10. It's an intense experience that always keeps you guessing. Definitely give it a shot if you haven't already. I want breakfast. Nightgown. Marshmallow. Headphones. Boop. Before Ratchet & Clank, Insomniac developed Spyro the Dragon, a trilogy of platformers that focused on a young purple dragon named Spyro. This trilogy was released on Sony's PlayStation between 1998 and 2000, and eventually remastered by Toys for Bob in 2018. This game franchise suffered the same fate as its older brother, Crash Bandicoot, in that both of the original developers left Universal to work directly with Sony. Now that we got the brief history lesson out of the way, let's dive into the very first game, my personal favorite in the series, Spyro the Dragon. I'd like to remind everyone that the first time I really sat down and played this game was back in 2015, so I don't have too much nostalgia for it. At least I don't have to worry about using that excuse. The story sees the inhabitants of the Dragon worlds making childish insults about calling him simple, no threat, and ugly. Okay, I know this game was made to be kid-friendly, but 9-year-olds have more creative insults than that. Yo, what's up, you bitch-ass pussy fucks? Actually, your kids shouldn't be saying that. Get them some help if they are. So yeah, it's pretty whack, but that's not the main focus. The object of this game is to collect all the gems scattered around the world and free the dragons from their stone prison. The game is a collect-a-thon platformer where you trek around in an open world collecting items and stealing back dragon eggs from thieves. After rescuing dragons, you can use their platforms as a save point or just a checkpoint. These dragons give you some helpful hints on how to progress. Sometimes. Most of the time, they'll just say this. Thank you for releasing me.
Thank you for releasing me.
Thank you for releasing me. Thank you for releasing me. Thank you for releasing me.
Thank you for releasing me.
Thank you for releasing me.
Thank you for releasing me.
Thank you for releasing me. Thank you for releasing me.
Thank you for releasing me.
There's a lot of instances where they literally say something stupid.
Spyro, it's great to see you, but I've got to go.
They're better off just thanking me for releasing them. Although, I do like the first hint you get about the supercharge.
When you see arrows like these, you can charge along with them to begin a supercharge.
Supercharge?
Now, collecting every single gem sounds like a massive chore. Well, Insomniac thought of that. This game's Aku Aku is a little dragonfly named Sparks. Sparks can collect nearby gems and 1-ups, while serving as a shield for Spyro. Sparks will turn blue after 1 hit, green after 2, then disappear after 3. If Spyro gets hit without Sparks, you die and respawn at the last checkpoint you touched. After getting hit, you can flame little enemies to feed a butterfly to Sparks, allowing him to regain his strength. Most of the levels in this game are very linear, but some do provide extra paths to take. There are 6 worlds, with each one housing 3 levels, a flight, and a boss. The only world without a flight is the last one, Nasty's World. The flights are minigames where you complete 4 objectives in a short time. Everything you collect extends your timer. For 100%, you will need to complete all 4 objectives in one go, which can prove to be quite challenging. The bosses in this game are... they're pretty weak. Half of them, Spyro doesn't even attack. The first boss is toasty, and... dude, is this really the best you can do?
Hey, don't blame me, there were cutbacks.
Then there's the fifth boss, Jock. You literally just platform until you reach the end, then you flame him. That's it. Basically, imagine if every boss was Papu Papu from Crash 1. They're that easy. Oh well, at least there's one other advantage this game has. That is the fact that every level can be completed 100% without needing to revisit it another time. This is why Spyro 1 is my favorite out of the trilogy. Of course, there is a fair amount of replay value lost as a result, but the levels make up for it by being immersive, vibrant, and quite large. Whatever you see in the background, you can travel to it. The great thing about the PS1 is that it loads up distant enemies kinda crappy to prevent distractions. The quality picks up as you approach those enemies. Same goes for all the different areas in the levels. Insomniac handled this to near perfection. You know what else was handled to near perfection? The soundtrack. This has to be one of the most diverse PS1 soundtracks I have ever heard. Every level's music fits so perfectly, and it's all thanks to the man behind it all. The Police drummer, Stuart Copeland.
They pay me for this.
No bias, no exaggeration. The way he composed this soundtrack was just absolutely phenomenal. Chef's kiss. Beautiful. The music for Wizard Peak would later become the credits music for Nickelodeon's The Amanda Show, slightly remixed by Copeland, of course. Just don't play this game on PS3 like I did. The emulator Sony used just cannot keep up sometimes, and if there's too much happening on screen, the game will lag. A lot. One other thing I love is the design of these levels. They incorporate everything you learn from Freeing the Dragons, like combining different attack patterns on certain enemies, or linking multiple ramps together for a really fast supercharge.
Supercharge?
The final boss battle is... not even a battle. You just chase down a couple thieves and take their keys, then chase down
Ganasty Gnorg
and flame him. After that, you race against the clock while navigating the platforms, then you flame Nasty one last time. That's it. If you collect every gem, free every dragon, and recover every egg, you will unlock the final level in the game, Ganasty's Galoot. In this level, you have the ability to fly. The higher you go up in the level, the higher you can fly. This part right here is so satisfying. Once you collect all 2,000 gems and exit the level, you get one last cutscene where Spyro is wearing sunglasses, and the dragons get frozen again. Guess those dragons needed to... stand still. And then the credits play. If there's one thing I would have to comment on, it's Spyro. Not necessarily the character himself, but rather his attitude and tone throughout the entire game. I don't know, every time he speaks, it sounds to me like he's some snarky, cocky little bitch. He kinda reminds me of that one kid in school who got in one fight and thought he was an absolute badass afterwards. I mean, all Spyro talks about is wanting to fry
Ganasty Gnorg.
and it quickly gets annoying.
What about Nasty Norg? I'm going after him. Where's Nasty Norg? I'll torch him.
Give me all the money in the cash register!
But honestly, that's just a little gripe compared to all the other positive things I have to say about this game. As far as the story goes, it is pretty lackluster, but great platformers don't need an amazing story. Just look at Crash 2. It does add to the experience, but it is not required so long as the gameplay is enough of a selling point. Now, how does Spyro control in this game? Well, he's a little stiff, but it doesn't take long to get used to it. Now, given this game has a camera you can rotate, Insomniac needed a workaround for those who didn't own a DualShock controller, so you use L2 and R2 to look around. Very neat, but I would have loved to have the option to use the right analog stick instead. Other than those minor gripes, this is otherwise a very solid game. It's got solid controls, great graphics, a banging soundtrack, and tons of content. The only setbacks are the very lackluster bosses and Spyro's personality. Overall, Spyro the Dragon is a solid game. I highly recommend it to any platformer enthusiast. Hell, I'll recommend this game to everyone. And holding L1 and triangle at the title screen grants you access to a demo for Warped. Yeah, it's tell no tales, but it's still pretty cool. I'm giving Spyro the Dragon a very solid 7 out of 10. With this being the first game in the series, improvements would be made to the gameplay, eventually creating an incredible sequel. Hey, you guys ready for a hot take? The SpongeBob movie game is better than Battle for Bikini Bottom. But why do I think that, you might ask? Well, I'm about to tell you. The SpongeBob SquarePants movie game was released on October 27, 2004 for the PlayStation 2, Xbox, GameCube, PC, and Game Boy Advance. Less than a month before the movie premiered in theaters. Nice one, Heavy Iron. Some copies of the PS2 Greatest Hits version didn't even have the logo on the cover. This is real. The game is obviously based on the movie, and that usually spells disaster. But Heavy Iron decides to make this game play exactly like BFBB. Thank you. Now let me briefly talk about the movie for a second. I fucking love it. I have seen this movie so many times I can recite the entire thing word for word. Which means I had no life. Yeah, the story is a bit whack and the whole thing is just SpongeBob and Patrick having tremendous strokes of luck, but I don't care, it's fine, it's harmless, shut up. Oh, I remember these. I used to watch these promos every time I turned the game on. There's one for SpongeBob Season 2, Jimmy Neutron Attack of the Twonkies, Fairly Odd Parents Shadow Showdown, Tak 2 The Staff of Dreams, and Avatar The Last Airbender, the anime that isn't. All of these are so charming to watch, even to this day, but we're here for the actual game, so let's begin. The story is the same as the movie, so I won't waste any time talking about it. However, there is one thing that bothers me. What are these cutscenes? The game has in-game cutscenes, but it also has these slideshow-style cutscenes narrated by the French narrator. Why didn't they just use clips from the movie in the form of FMVs? And these cutscenes, I'm putting quotes around that, don't even feature screenshots from the movie. Most of it is either concept art or just PNGs placed on top of backgrounds. Like, what is this? Anyway, the game features SpongeBob and Patrick as the two playable characters. Each have 4 different abilities they can perform. Every ability from Battle returns, only reskinned for some reason. The only new ability is Patrick's Cartwheel, which you can get in the second level, I'm Ready Depression. However, in this game, these abilities can be upgraded by collecting a certain amount of manly weights, which are the shiny objects in this game. Progression in this game is done by getting from point A to point B in each level. The levels were designed in a way to make the events and in-game cutscenes correlate to the events in the movie, so levels end up being much more linear as a result. At the beginning of each level, Mindy will give you a new ability if you have enough Goofy Goober tokens. These tokens can be collected at the end of each level, as well as from completing side quests. There's a bungee challenge where you break all the targets while avoiding steam. The Sponge Ball now has its own challenge where you roll SpongeBob across an obstacle course. There's the Combat Arena challenge where you have to defeat a horde of enemies. Then there's the Floating Block challenges, where Patrick has to navigate an obstacle course of floating blocks. These challenges take place in the same area as SpongeBob's Dream. I don't know why there's a giant block in the middle of the 3,000 miles one, and when you get to the third section, the game puts you inside the block to make you think you're on acid. This scared the shit out of me as a kid. I had many a nightmare thanks to this. Ah, good times. When you get to Planktopolis, you get the Sonic Wave guitar. You can then go back to I'm Ready Depression, Bubble Blowing Baby Hunt, and Shell City Dead Ahead to complete the Sonic Wave guitar challenge, where you navigate the wave through rings. The hardest one of the lot is definitely Shell City Dead Ahead because it's long, it's hard, and the rings like to move on you. There are also 4 vehicle levels in which SpongeBob and Patrick will use the paddy wagon. Each of these levels has a time challenge, a ring challenge because I didn't do enough of these in Going Commando, and a manly time challenge. The same goes for the 3 slide levels. In these levels, SpongeBob and Patrick ride down a slide together in a shell down to the bottom of the trench, the King's Crown while escaping from Shell City, or a bathtub across the desert? I don't remember that from the movie.
Mindy was right. They knock over like bone pins.
I never said that!
Anyway, this game also has bosses. There's the giant frogfish, Dennis again, and King Neptune. The Neptune boss fight is awesome for one reason. The third and final phase changes the music to Goofy Goober Rock, which I can't fucking play right now because of copyright. This game also has extra chests to collect, with each one unlocking a goodie in the extras menu, ranging from soundboards to trailers to the game's FMVs, concept art, and different costumes for SpongeBob and Patrick. You ever wanted to see SpongeBob as an actual Scotch-Brite sponge from 3M? This game has you covered. Whoa, Patrick, I didn't know you had an OnlyFans! Collecting every extra and token grants you the 100% ending, which is just an in-game cutscene recreating the still images from the movie's end credits. This is kinda cool, but They couldn't use Ocean Man, so it's just Goofy Goober Rock, which sounds out of place. These are a few reasons why I think this game is better than Battle for Bikini Bottom. Now I hear you saying, but these guys have less material to work with. How is the movie game better? Because this game all but proves that less is more theory. They turned a fucking desert into a pretty good platforming level. And do I even have to mention how intense Planktopolis was? Now let's talk about the soundtrack. Like Battle, this game's soundtrack is really good. I love the sliding music, the floating block music, and the music for 3000 Miles. I mean, just listen to how atmospheric the music for Now That We're Men is. Or how about the chilling orchestra in Planktopolis? Oh, and remember how I mentioned that Battle had no facial expressions on the models in the cutscenes? Well, this game fixes that issue. Speaking of the models, they are the same as BFBB, so they still look pretty whack, but I think Heavy Iron cleaned them up a bit to make them look more presentable. Is that the laugh from Ripped Pants? Yep, it is. Huh. And the characters talk in the pause menu.
Strange. It's too quiet. Like just before the Great Chum Famine of '58.
Wait, 58? I thought it happened in 59. Eugene, make up your goddamn mind. That is why, in my honest opinion, I prefer this game to Battle for Bikini Bottom. Not to mention, this is a movie tie-in. It had every right to suck, yet it managed to slap pretty damn hard. If you ask me, this is the game that should have been rehydrated. The SpongeBob SquarePants movie video game gets 7 out of 10. Obviously, this game has its flaws, but there is so much good that incredibly outweighs the bad. And outside of the Shell City Dead Ahead Guitar Challenge, there was never really anything from this game I dreaded. The backtracking is a bit weird though, but that's beside the point. It might be my nostalgia talking, but I find myself coming back to this game more than I do Battle for Bikini Bottom because the levels are shorter, and honestly, the game as a whole was less boring. Try as you might to convince me otherwise, I will stand by what I said. Battle bad, movie good. Sue me. In 2006, Sonic the Hedgehog was turning 15, and most fans tried to forget about that anniversary for obvious reasons. However, a lot of people tend to forget that a good game did actually come from this year, and it was an extreme airborne/racing hybrid. The game in question is Sonic Riders. So get your cool kid shit on because it's time to get extreme! Alright, let's dive into the world of Sonic once again. Last time I visited this series, I reviewed Sonic Unleashed for the channel's 1000 subscriber special. I do plan on reviewing other games in the series, but for now, we have a pair of racing games here that stand out from other well-known racing games out there. So without further ado, let's begin the video by tackling Sonic Riders. This game was released in 2006 for the PlayStation 2, Xbox, GameCube, and PC. It has received mixed reviews, which is understandable. The game opens up with an anime-style FMV, and that music! This is a perfect cutscene to get you pumped. The story is that a band of thieves known as the Babylon Rogues steal a Chaos Emerald. Sonic and his friends try, and fail, to chase them down. The next morning, Eggman announces that Shadow the Hedgehog is a... No, don't worry, I'm not going to make that joke. The next morning, Eggman announces that he is hosting an extreme gear racing tournament known as the X World Grand Prix. The price of admission is a Chaos Emerald, and whoever performs the best overall wins the tournament.
Well, I never imagined anyone would enter the race with such a piece of junk.
Why does that laugh make Waves sound like Project Melody? So the game begins and... wow, okay, this is a lot to take in on very short notice. I clearly don't know what I'm doing, so let's watch the tutorial FMV. Okay, so this video is pretty helpful, but not that much. Alright, guess I'm gonna have to figure everything else out on my own. So the game auto-accelerates, allowing you to focus on everything else going on. Holding the jump button gives you more airtime to perform tricks in order to fill up this meter. It represents how much air is left in your gear. Think of it as like gas for your car. If you run out, you have to run on foot until you either approach a jump or fill up in a pit area. If you don't stick the landing, you won't get any air, and you'll receive a rank C. Each rank determines how much air you get. The ranks are C, B, A, AA, S, SS, and X. You can boost as well, but don't go hog wild because it consumes a lot of air. You can use the triggers to drift around tight corners. Shortcuts are everywhere in this game. If you're taking the normal, boring route every lap, you're doing it wrong. There are shortcuts for specific character types, shortcuts you can normally take to gain an edge on the competition, and even shortcuts you can jump up to if you pull back on the left stick while jumping. This game implements the Heroes formula in that there are certain paths each character can take depending on their type, all of which refill your air. Speed characters can grind on rails, flying characters can fly through rings, and power characters can punch away objects. This makes them incredibly OP. Honestly, I find myself playing as Knuckles a lot because of this. There are 5 tracks to start off, but you can unlock 11 more. However, most of these tracks are just palette swaps. The story progression is simple. Win each race, and you're done. However, each race gets tougher, and opponents get tougher as well. After 6 races, the hero story ends, but like the games that preceded this one, the story doesn't end there. The Babylon story is now available, and it's essentially the same story just told from the Babylon Rogues perspective. You play as the Babylon Rogues and race across slightly different versions of the tracks. There is, however, one extra track at the end of the game. It's revealed that there's a giant genie guarding the treasure of Babylon, so Sonic and company fight the genie to escape the digital dimension. We then discover a magic carpet that was fabricated using extreme gear material. The game then splits, and the game is over. But it doesn't end there. The story may be wrapped up, but we have a ton of other things to do. In the World Grand Prix mode, you race through 5 tracks in a row, competing in the Heroes Cup and the Babylon Cup. Finishing first overall unlocks the Sega-themed tracks. Beating Story Mode also unlocks the Boss Race and Digital Dimension, an illusional track that starts in Hell, then flings you into Heaven, and finally warping into Purgatory, then back to Hell for Lap 2. There is a multiplayer mode for up to 4 players, but as you can see, I have so many friends. If you happen to be a Larry Loner, you can play Tag Mode. This split-screen game has you team up with the CPU and reach the goal before the opposing team, while you and your teammate play Tug of War. If one of you runs away, you get electrocuted and have to wait until your teammate catches up. Not fun. This game also has a battle mode, but it sucks. In addition, we also have missions. Complete objectives to earn emblems and unlock more missions. Getting gold on every mission unlocks Super Sonic. His air runs on rings and he has every type, making him broken AF. Completing every mission unlocks 3 characters from other Sega franchises. Ai from Super Monkey Ball, Ooh La La from Space Channel 5, and Knights, who is completely silent. You can also purchase more gear at the shop using the rings you collected in the races. The cutscenes are mostly in-game with 3 FMVs included, all of which you can replay in the extras menu. So that's really all I can say about this game. It is fun, but damn is it hard. That's the main problem with this game. The AI difficulty, combined with the very steep learning curve, makes this game unnecessarily brutal. In a lot of cases, I can't even recommend it because it's not a game you can pick up and play. You really have to study the intricacies of this game in order to understand how to play it. Despite this game being good, it is not for everyone. Sonic Riders gets 6 out of 10. Keep in mind, that's a pretty weak 6. If it was more accessible to newcomers, I would give it a 7, but sadly, it isn't. Make no mistake though, this is still a good game. It's just really difficult to learn, and that was its major problem. The sequel, on the other hand, dialed it way down. Perhaps too far down. Let's talk about Sonic Riders Zero Gravity. Hold on! It's time for an obligatory call to action! I couldn't help but notice that over 97% of you are not subscribed. I don't give a fuck. The button is there. Only click it if this is the content you're looking for. Okay, let's get back to the review. Sonic Riders Zero Gravity was released in 2008 for the PlayStation 2 and Nintendo Wii, months before Sonic Unleashed. Essentially, Zero Gravity is the same as Riders, except way simpler. Perhaps too simple. Where Riders felt like I was left to figure everything out on my own, Zero Gravity feels like suddenly the game is holding my hand. Not a good start. The story, this time around, sees our heroes discovering some ancient stones known as the Arcs of the Cosmos, which can be used to manipulate gravity. The Mediotech robots go berserk as a result of these stones crashing onto the planet. Wait, is it Mediotech or Meteortech? Game? Choose! The races have really dialed back in terms of complexity. Tricks are automatically performed based on the timing of your jump, the gears accelerate slower, and you can't drift. Instead, you get around tight corners by warping gravity. Holding B while turning gets you around the corner faster. Letting go sends you flying in the direction you are facing. If you hold the R trigger in a straightaway, you can use what's called a meteor burst, allowing you to fly in the air at blazing speeds. You can go even faster by ricocheting off objects. Rings can be used to initiate what's called a gear change. You can increase your top speed, extend your gravity meter, and unlock that board's type. Yeah, you don't have it immediately. You have to upgrade your gear on the fly. Not a fan of it, but I don't mind. Now here's my problem with the game's story. It is told like a traditional Sonic the Hedgehog story. What I mean by that is that this isn't some World Grand Prix we're competing in. Yet we still do 3-lap races as if it was a World Grand Prix. This is gonna sound weird, but I feel like they should have taken an F-Zero GX-esque approach. Try saying that 3 times fast. In that the game provides exclusive tracks in the story. That way, trying to get from point A to point B makes more sense than do 3 laps in an allotted time. Just a thought. Speaking of the World Grand Prix, this mode needs to be unlocked because you race 6 tracks in a row rather than 5. Like the first game, the story doesn't end after beating the hero's story. We also have the Babylon story, and this time the tracks are actually somewhat different, as opposed to just being palette swaps. Here's something interesting. In the Mediotech level, you are chasing Amy in the Babylon story. Or are you? Because you actually play as Amy and run away from Storm. In the Babylon story. This makes absolutely no sense. That would be like if Sonic Adventure 2 had you fight as Tails against Eggman in both stories. Why did they do this? Anyway, after the 6th race, surprise surprise, the game is not over. Turns out the Arcs of the Cosmos warp gravity by creating mini black holes, which is revealed to be the lightless black that assaulted the Divine Wings, an interstellar spaceship that crash-landed on Sonic's planet a long time ago. Spoiler alert, that aforementioned ship is Babylon Garden. The Mediotech leader steals all 5 Arcs of the Cosmos and uses them to turn Babylon Garden into a weapon of mass destruction. A black hole is created, and it begins to tear the planet apart. Now Sonic and friends must trek to Babylon Garden and take out the final boss, the Master Core Abyss? Who the fuck knows how to pronounce it? Hit him 6 times and the game is won. Whoever named this track deserves a raise. The track is called Mobius Strip because the shape of the track is, well, a Mobius Strip. It's also very excellent wordplay in that Sonic's planet is called Mobius, and it's being stripped by a black hole. Oh, shut up, it's clever. Anyway, like the first game, you start with 5 tracks, but can unlock 11 more by beating the story. Missions and extra characters and gears return. Getting the extreme rank on every mission unlocks Super Sonic. This time around, he sucks. There's one mission in the Gigan Rocks that allows you to collect a bunch of rings, making gear shopping less tedious. Silver and Blaze can now be unlocked after beating the story. This time around, the 3 Sega characters that make a cameo are Knights, returning from Riders, who is still silent, Amigo from Samba de Amigo, and Billy Hatcher. Really? Why not Rystar, or Alex Kidd, or Arl Naja from the Puyo Puyo series? Also, why didn't they include console-exclusive characters? Like, maybe the PS2 version could have had Ratchet and Clank, Sly Cooper, and Crash Bandicoot. Then the Wii version could have Mario, Link, and maybe Kirby. I don't know. All I'm saying is that there are better options out there. Now, there is one elephant in the room that I have to address. It involves Dr. Eggman.
Do you think you can beat me?
Your ears did not deceive you. That was Dean Bristow. You see, Sonic Team started development on the first game shortly after his passing in 2005. As tribute, his voice lines from the adventure games were used as Eggman's gameplay dialogue as a neat little Easter egg. That was cool, but at the same time, strange. Because in the story cutscenes, Eggman is voiced by Mike Pollock. Now, this isn't a big deal in the first game, but in Zero Gravity, it is. Dialogue from the first game was carried over, meaning Dean Bristow's recycled clips made their way into Zero Gravity, making the Easter egg even more awkward because Mike Pollock had to record some extra gameplay lines for Eggman. So now Eggman is voiced by both Dean Bristow and Mike Pollock when you play as him. So while this game established some quality of life improvements compared to the first, it feels like it became a bit too simple as a result. I definitely beat this game before Riders as a kid because the simplicity helped me better understand how the game is played. Which, in a sense, is a good thing. However, where Riders felt too hard at times, Zero Gravity felt too easy. The good still outweighs the bad, but it's still not a game I can recommend. The game is worth it for the soundtrack alone. The music was co-composed by, and forgive me if I'm mispronouncing these names, Kenichi Tokoi and Fumi Kumatani, who also worked on other Sonic OSTs. I fucking loved this game's main theme song, Ungravify by Cashel. It is my second favorite Sonic song of all time. But other than that, I feel like this game sits on par with its predecessor. Sonic Riders Zero Gravity gets a pretty weak 6 out of 10. I really do wish there was something here that would warrant a 7, but unfortunately the game is just too simple and, in a lot of cases, boring. You know what game isn't boring? Ratchet Deadlocked. I can't wait to dive back into the Ratchet and Clank series and get my hands on... Ow! What the... Sonic Free Riders? Fuck! Yep, we're not done. Sonic Free Riders was released in 2011 exclusively for the Xbox 360, making this the first and only HD Riders game. This game incorporates the Kinect peripheral. Now, I actually tested a couple games prior to playing Free Riders, and the results were 50-50. Kinect Sports actually worked really well, even with the very little space I had around me. Wipeout in the Zone, on the other hand...
Clean sweep? Really? Looked like a dirty one to me. Ooh, he takes a big hit from the sweeper arm.
Yeah, it didn't work.
I'm John Henson saying good night and big balls.
So, I'm already cautious with this game. Also, not a single person has said anything positive about this game. So, the red flags are definitely out there, but I'm gonna give the game a shot, and who knows? Maybe this will be another Kinect Sports where it actually does really well with the device you're using, and it's something I can recommend. Okay, it's shit. For starters, this tutorial just does not work. Menu navigation using the Kinect mic? Forget it. I'm saying next, and the game sees that, but it does nothing. You know what? Screw this. I don't need no goddamn tutorial. Let's jump right into this game's story mode. The story is King Doc, who is totally not Eggman, is hosting another World Grand Prix, with the prize being a shit ton of treasure. That's it. That's the game. You play as 4 teams in a total of 6 missions and 4 races. It's the bare minimum here. Beating every story unlocks the final story. A final race is held and everybody races each other one last time. You play as Sonic throughout this story, no surprises there. After that race, King Doc reveals that he is Dr. Eggman. Oh my god, I totally did not see that coming. Using his new gear that he built using the data he collected, he challenges everybody to a final race. After winning that race, the blue generic robot is revealed to be Metal Sonic. Christ. So Sonic races Metal one-on-one in a final race. Then, the game is over. Finally.
It sounds like we all managed to have fun.
Speak for yourself, motherfucker.
Okay, so I actually figured out what was wrong with the voice commands. Turns out, saying a certain menu selection only highlights that option. Then, you have to say select. Nowhere does the game tell you that this is what you have to do. I also noticed one glaring flaw with this game. When you're standing like this, the Kinect can't see your back foot, which leads to it guessing where it is, causing unwanted inputs, such as boosting. So, I have a theory. What if you spread your legs out enough so the Kinect can see both of your feet? Well, it doesn't completely remedy that problem, but it at least functions a little bit now. I think if I go any further, I will throw up. Not to mention, if you're somebody like me and you're playing this game where the only thing separating your feet from a hard cement basement floor is a shitty thin carpet, this game will murder your legs and back from all the leaning and jumping you have to do. This is hands down one of the worst games I have ever played. Thank God I only spent $9 on this, because $60 back in 2011, on top of the $150 the Kinect cost, would have been an absolute ripoff. Sonic Free Riders gets 2 out of 10. This game is pretty terrible. But it's not worse than... Oh god, no! So that was a rather undeserved ending to the Riders series, as 10 years later, we still have not gotten a new game. I know fan projects exist, but let's be real, Sonic games are always being fixed by fans. Fucking finally! Yes, we Doki Doki fans have waited 4 years for something new to emerge from Team Salvato. The long-awaited follow-up to one of the greatest psycho horror games of all time was... a console port. Yeah, not exactly what we were expecting, but at least there is some new stuff in this game. June 30th arrived with the release of Doki Doki Literature Club Plus. The digital release, anyway. This game's physical release was pushed back to July 31st, then August 21st, then September 21st, then finally October 8th. It was one delay away from becoming a meme. And as you can see, my copy is still sealed because I wanted to wait until this review to open it up and see the contents inside. So the following segment is going to be unscripted, just so my reaction is genuine. Without further ado, let's dive in. Alright, and here we are. The seal has been officially taken off, so now it is time to dive in. Let's see what we got. Ooh! Here is the disc. And then, of course, it is just Monica. Alright, let's check all this out because, yeah, all the pre-order contents are actually within all this. So, yeah, so that's the cover, and here's all the pre-order shit. So, here's the cover, and we're just gonna put you over there, and let's dive into what we got here. Oh, how nice! First thing you see when you open up the box, and it's a business card. Monica's promoting her new IP. Let's check this out. Ooh, a Literature Club member card. Oh, that's cool. Okay, well, I guess I gotta fill this out. I don't have a pen anywhere, I don't think. Favorite genre? Do they mean books?
According to Wikipedia, Diary of a Wimpy Kid is an American fiction book series and media franchise created by author and cartoonist Jeff Kinney. To find out more, look for the link in your Google Home or Google Assistant app.
Alright, that doesn't help. Alright, my favorite word? I don't think you want me answering that. I am now officially a member of the Doki Doki Literature Club. My name is John. My favorite color is royal blue. My favorite genre is fiction. And my favorite word is fuck. This is a This is a downloadable code for the official soundtrack for DDLC Plus that you will be hearing in this video. Provided it's not fucking copyrighted music, because then that would suck. There's a download code on the front of this, and it tells me to redeem it at ost.ddlc+, which I will be doing immediately after recording this bit, because I don't want any of you fuckers getting your hands on this download code, okay? Oh, cute stickers. Cute little stickers of all the girls in their chibi form. There's coffee, there's some hearts, different colored hearts, and a pen to write the way into your heart, somebody's heart, I don't fucking know. Oh, these are the stand-up things. Yeah, these, you pop these out and then you stick them on their platforms, and they're like little, they're cutouts that you can place somewhere. So these will be cool. There's 2 of each, so yeah. And I think I know exactly where Monica is going to go. There we go. I have found a home for my Monica stickers. Future me, just remember to edit in a picture of the thing. Edit in a picture right here showcasing what I did with the Monica stickers. Cool, thanks. And last but not least, we have our little personal poem that was written to us by Monica. The satisfaction of control, the direct cause and effect of pressing pen to paper, the pride in my achievements, the responsibility for my mistakes. I breathe the weight of it all. Problems are just things that need solving. The future is called anxiety. The past is called regret. The present can be shaped by my hands, by my words, by my actions. It controls me, anchors me to my handcrafted reality, imprisons me within my own artisanship. The captive pen makes meaningless stains, wet lines soaked up by the pulp of dead cells. That's why I must learn to relinquish it all. The weight, the responsibility, the pride, the control. The pen in my hand, and the one in my heart, the one of my heart. So I can fly and chase yours, or learn to be happy, watching you fly without me. Let me know if it's a different poem than Control, or if everybody just got Control. Yeah. Well, now that we have released everything from the seal, let's return to the Literature Club. Metaverse Enterprise Solutions, that must be the VM they used to develop this game. All characters are over the age of 18. Guess I can cancel my trip to prison then. So this game actually gives you the option to review what takes place in it. It does, however, introduce spoilers, which doesn't really affect me, considering I've already gone through and beaten the original multiple times. This is nice and all, but what the fuck is this game rated? M for mature. That should be enough of a warning. Whatever, let's just agree and proceed. Ah, yes, not suitable for children or those who are easily disturbed. It's so memorable, people know exactly what you're talking about as soon as you say it. And here we are. Everything looks the same as ever. In fact, everything is the same as ever. Yeah, I can literally just copy and paste my script for the original game and nothing would change. But you know me, I went through the whole thing to see if I could find anything, even subtle things. And believe it or not, the entire game plays exactly like the original. Wow the girl of your choice by writing poems for her, find out your childhood friend took her own life, watch shit hit the fan, watch Natsuki snap her neck, watch Yuri kill herself, delete Monica, and get a letter at the end of the game. There's only one difference, and it's the only one I could find, and it's so subtle you probably didn't see it at first. In the original Act 2, when you got to Yuri and Natsuki fighting over who you should spend the weekend with, Monica would exclaim, "Jesus Christ, this is never going to end, just make the choice, okay?" Well, in DDLC Plus, the line is changed to, "For God's sake, this is never going to end, just make the choice, okay?" This change was most likely to cater to the liberals who would have otherwise been offended by the Lord's name being used in vain. Fucking dicks. With this game being released not only on Steam, but also PS4, PS5, and Nintendo Switch, Team Salvato needed a workaround for when you had to reset the game or delete Monica. Well, if you quit the game, you'll boot back to the VM. From here, you can access the files, pictures that you can make your wallpaper, mail from somebody, settings, the game's OST, and the main attraction, the side stories, a culmination of friendship stories that have nothing to do with the events of the original game. Oh, so that's what's so plus about Doki Doki Literature Club Plus. We have 6 side stories we can check out after writing poems for everybody and seeing all the CGs. So you still have to play the original in order to unlock them all. Which is good. There's an incentive towards revisiting it. So let's check these out. Before I do, I think you all know what I'm going to say next. If you don't want anything spoiled, get out. You were warned. Okay, moving on. So we begin with Monica making her announcement to no one. After some moping, Sayori arrives for the first time, and the two become better acquainted. Sayori then encourages Monica to stop being a massive perfectionist. One day, Sayori leaves behind her folder, and Monica skims through it. Sayori then gives Monica a piece of paper that reads, "Sometimes I want to die." Yeah, about that. Anyway, Monica then pulls Sayori into a warm embrace and comforts her. Afterwards, a new member arrives, and that concludes the side story Trust. Now, obviously, I'm not going to go through every side story in this video, as I encourage you to check out the rest of them for yourself. Each side story is 2 parts, and keep this in mind. The order that you see them is the order they are meant to be played in. One story is a precursor to the next. Each story has its own CG, and they revolve around 2 of the Dokis. Trust is Monica x Sayori, Understanding is Sayori x Yuri, Respect is Monica x Natsuki, Balance is Sayori x Natsuki, Reflection is Monica x Yuri, and Self-Love is Natsuki x Yuri. And yes, fan service is plentiful. After viewing all of those, you unlock one final side story, Equals. In this story, the girls recap what they learned in the club after getting better acquainted with each other, and reflect on the memories and hardships that come with making friends, or any relationship for that matter. They take a selfie together, and the credits play. So, while the side stories didn't necessarily present to us what we expected, you know, this, the stories were still heartwarming and cute. It also gives you a conflicted feeling at the same time, because you may notice that Monica is not a psychotic bitch, so something isn't adding up here. And to be frank, I'm not going to go deep into the whole Project Libitina lore, as MatPat has already posted 2 theories of this version of the game, which I definitely recommend you check out if you are interested. So, I guess that's really it. Not really. There's still technically one last thing in this game. It appears in the side stories menu after you have obtained 100% completion. Test VM. Let's check it out. Oh, well, this looks lovely. Well, that was definitely worth it. Yeah, that's only there to be another piece of the lore puzzle. Okay, now we're done. Would I recommend this game? Well, if you don't give a shit about the side stories and just want to see what was all the rage back in 2017, then no. You're better off just downloading the original, which is still absolutely free. However, if you're a die-hard fan, like I've come to be, this is an absolute... I'm not entirely sure. At the end of the day, I think it's really up to the consumer to determine the game's value. Do I want to spend money for essentially an expansion pack for a game I already played, or do I say fuck that and just download the original game? I say it's worth it if you want to have all the feels at the end of it all, but in the grand scheme, I don't really see any benefits other than having access to beach episodes that aren't even canon, because that's all they are. Yes, I know I just got done saying how cute they were, but to be honest, I was expecting more of this, and I think I speak for most of the fanbase when I say that. It was a welcoming change, yes, but it wasn't what I was looking for. Now, I'm not saying I wanted everybody to die, heavens no, but at least give me something that'll make me feel like this again. And if you think you're going to find any changes in the main game compared to the original, well, like I said, that is a big NOPE. I'm disappointed to see there's nothing new in the main game, but at the same time, I liked the side stories to an extent. I just would have liked to see this game throw a curveball at me, which, sadly, it never did. Oh well. One thing we can't take away from this game, though, is that it is still as addicting as the original, and I wish Team Salvato the best of luck on their next project, whatever it may be. So what does Doki Doki Literature Club Plus get? Well, considering everything I said, I can't find myself giving this game anything but a 7 out of 10. And perhaps that's a good thing. After all, it's just a port, but with an expansion pack, so do what you wish. Load me. Well, at least the pre-order shit was cool. I mean, I can now be an absolute boomer by saying I own a fucking floppy drive. And the personal poem was cute too, so yeah, I'll say it was $30 well spent. Now, I don't know about you, but I am a sucker for controller showcase videos. It's really cool to see some of the wacky, over-the-top controllers some of these people manage to get their hands on. This video idea has always been in the back of my mind, and so here is my current collection. Keep in mind, this collection could get either bigger or smaller, as I tend to go through a lot of these. But today, I have for you all a total of 38 controllers to showcase and briefly talk about. So, let's go through them all one by one. Obviously, I'm not going to be including any handhelds or peripherals. I'm showing you 38 controllers that you physically hold in your hands. I'm going to go through the collection in order by generation, and the earliest I have are from Gen 5, so the PS1 and N64 controllers are up first. So let's kick things off with the original PlayStation Digital Pad. It's your basic run-of-the-mill controller. This is the controller that came bundled with the original PlayStation, and given Sony's dysfunctional relationship with Nintendo, it's no surprise to see this controller strike a similar resemblance to the SNES controller. The controller is equipped with the iconic 4 face buttons: X, triangle, circle, and square. On the other side are the directional buttons. I would argue that it's the best one I've used on a controller, but a D-pad's a D-pad, so it's not really saying much. The start and select buttons are conveniently placed in the middle. The main thing that makes this controller stand out, aside from the 2 prongs, is the 4 equally sized shoulder buttons: L1, R1, L2, and R2. All in all, this is a really good controller, but due to me not being the best caretaker, the start button has become very faulty and select doesn't even work at all. But other than that, this is functional and the stage was set. So now that we've seen the real thing, let's check out a controller that tries to circulate the directional buttons. This controller is a third-party unit made by a company named Interact. Now, when I bought a replacement PS1, the seller on eBay bundled this controller with it. Trust me, one quick look at this made me glad I never heard of this thing. I've never even seen it either. The buttons feel kinda cheap, and this D-pad... I get what they were going for here to make it feel a little more comfortable and not like your thumb was getting stabbed while playing Crash 1, but it just doesn't feel right. Circular D-pads will probably get a lot of people excited, but for me, this is just no. Okay, so let's just move on to our third and final PS1 controller. A clear, first-party DualShock from Sony themselves. Don't worry about the missing right stick. Essentially, this is the same as the digital pad, only with the 2 analog sticks, with the left one for player movement and the right one for character movement. It is a shame that not many games take advantage of this controller. This controller also includes 2 vibration motors, hence the trademark DualShock. But for whatever reason, the ones in this controller just stopped working. Hey, I didn't say these things were perfect. Well, that's my PS1 controller collection taken care of, so let's now move on to the controllers that have become infamous for being one of the worst things to ever be made. N64 controllers. Now, let me make this perfectly clear. I don't care if Nintendo intended the controller to look like this or not. I cannot stand playing games with this fucking thing. But now that I finally got a Nintendo 64, I'll give it a fair shot and put it through its paces. The layout is definitely different from your standard controller back in the 90s. It only has 2 face buttons, A and B. Right next to them are what are known as the C buttons, used mainly for camera movement, but they also serve as extra action buttons. For example, in the N64 versions of the Tony Hawk games, you use the D-pad and C buttons to perform tricks, simulating a PS1 controller and making those versions of the game much more tolerable. The start button is in the middle, big and red. The back of the controller is equipped with the Z trigger, located on the back of the middle prong. Yeah, have I mentioned that this is shit? I think Nintendo was aware of this setback because practically every game only requires you to hold 2 of them at a time. Thank God. Yeah, I'm done with the positive talk for this thing. I have 4 of these in my collection. Can you call me a psychopath? Probably. Okay, enough talking about these things. I gave them more time than they deserve. Let's move on to the controllers for the 6th generation, starting with the PlayStation 2. Now, for the rest of the video, I'm actually going to show off the third-party controllers first. Let's begin the PS2 showcase with these guys. They're from a brand named Casella, who the fuck knows how to pronounce it? And they're one of those controllers that look like a DualShock 2 at first glance, minus the different looking face buttons, of course. But if you take another good look, you'll find out real quick that this is a cheap alternative. In digital mode, the left stick acts as a second D-pad, while the right stick acts as a second set of face buttons. Down for X, left for square, right for circle, and up for triangle. Convenient, yes, but cumbersome. All the buttons are super clicky, and this chassis feels weird. It feels kind of glossy, as opposed to the cheap plastic feel that a lot of these knockoffs are made out of. Honestly, the best thing I can say about how glossy this feels is for you to get one so you can feel it for yourself. That is, if I was recommending this controller to you, which I'm not. It's shit. The 2 I have are teal and orange. And of course, they're wireless, so the 2.4 GHz connection introduces very slight latency, which is why I prefer a direct connection to the console. Oh, what luck! Our next controller is exactly that. This one was made by Hyperkin, and it kind of feels weird as well, but not as weird as that glossy finish the last 2 controllers had. This controller, like the PS1 Interact controller, came with the 70,000 series PS2 I bought on eBay. Compared to the DualShock 2, this controller feels a teensy bit on the heavy side. One thing I'm not particularly a fan of is the start and select buttons. They're the same rectangle and it just doesn't feel right at all. But hey, at least it's not as bad as this analog button. God, the state of this fucking thing. This controller doesn't even have an LED to tell you whether or not analog mode is turned on. So, yeah, you will not see me using this thing. I don't even think my friends would want to use this. Which is okay, because I have 2 DualShock controllers within my possession. Now, I don't know about you, but I fucking love these controllers, especially the ones with the translucent colors. I have Crimson Red and Emerald Green, and at one point, my uncle had Ocean Blue. I have a lot of nostalgia towards Emerald Green, so having it in my collection is essential. As far as the button layout goes, it's the same as the original DualShock, and you could even use these controllers on a PS1, so I have nothing to report. One tiny issue that people have with these controllers is that the buttons are pressure sensitive, but for the most part, it's not really a problem. Only in rare cases, and I do stress rare. When I was younger, I also had a Spider-Man themed controller, but not anymore. Okay, are you ready for this? I have a total of 6, count them, 6 GameCube controllers to showcase to you all. So let's go through them all right now, starting with these things. These are wireless knockoffs of Nintendo's Wavebird controller, and these feel like absolute fucking garbage. The buttons and triggers feel very cheaply made, and that's probably because they are. Jesus, the triggers register sometimes twice if you press it all the way down, making them virtually unusable. Oh boy, that's not even the worst one I have. That honor goes to this controller from Old School. Remember this one? This was the controller that was featured in the Pac-Man World reviews. This thing was made of the cheapest plastic you could think of. It's so cheap you can feel the vibration of the springs under the triggers. The Z trigger is clicky. Are you fucking kidding me? The face buttons, same thing. And if you so much as drop the fucking thing, it doesn't work anymore. I've gone through so many of these things. I had a few even turn off my console when I plugged them in. That was fucking fun. Alright, let's get rid of this vomit and talk about this controller, also from Old School. Now, I'll admit, this does feel better than the cheap orange one, but that's not really saying much. The casing definitely feels better, and the triggers don't feel like they could easily break. The front is green while the back is blue. Not really a fan of that, but it's no big deal. I'm not even going to use it that much anyway. If you don't want to spend too much on an OEM controller and you want to avoid whatever this is, the old school controller with their logo on it is an okay middle ground. But be honest, you don't want any of them. You want this. Finally, the real thing. This is arguably one of the best, if not the best controller out there. Analog triggers, responsive sticks and buttons, the humongous A button compared to the other face buttons, and it all just feels so nice. My favorite thing about this controller is the satisfying, snappy sound the controller stick makes when you flick it. Fuck, I love this thing. I don't play GameCube games with anything else, and when Wii games support it, you can bet I'm whipping it out. Anything beats motion controls. Now before we move on to the 7th generation, I'd like to briefly talk about one last GameCube controller. So let's check this baby out. What I have here is old school's take on the digital GameCube pad, originally made by Hori, for use with Game Boy games on the Game Boy Player. Voltar mentioned this controller in his GameCube mod video, and he said it actually isn't that bad. So I bought one to test that theory, and yep, this thing's actually pretty good. The Z button feels a bit unresponsive, but you only use it to make minor adjustments through the software, so it's not a major problem. The Y button also feels a bit difficult to press, but that and X are mapped by proxy to select on a GBA. However, this pad has a select button, making X and Y redundant, so again, nothing you really have to worry about. Guys, this thing is pretty damn sweet, and it's selling for about $40 on Old School's website, as well as Amazon. Why is that important? Because the real Hori pad, due to its rarity, goes for hundreds of dollars everywhere you look. So I highly recommend you get yourself an Old School pad if you have a Game Boy player. The best part? You can use this on GameCube games as well, and it works really well with racing games like Pac-Man World Rally. Man, we are plowing right through these, aren't we? Let me give you a few seconds to take a breath. Maybe get up and stretch. Time's up. Here's the DualShock 3. Don't get super excited though. It's pretty much the same as the DualShock 2 minus a few things. The triggers are now analog, the analog button is now the PS button, and the main thing is that there's no wire. The interesting thing about this controller is that it uses a Bluetooth connection, which explains the input lag. That's why it's recommended to plug it into the PS3 via USB, which defeats the whole purpose of it being wireless. But hey, at least it has a battery that you can charge with a mini USB cable. I used to have two silver ones, but they're both missing triggers from one of my unhappy moments. And that pink knockoff you saw in the recent Ratchet videos? Yeah, that thing's gone too. So I now have two real DualShock 3s that work, and they're white. I like white. Anyway, let's move on to the Xbox 360. Now, I only have two wired third-party controllers because the wireless first-party ones have been put out to pasture, for lack of a better term. So here's the first wire controller. It's red, and it's from Rock Candy. For the most part, it's pretty good. However, this controller is a bit faulty. It only functions when you hold it in a specific position to bend the cable in a specific way, which is why I went ahead and bought myself this one from Amazon. It's from a brand called UDAG, and like the Rock Candy one, it's not bad. I actually don't mind using this one, and it makes for a neat PC controller as well. It's a win-win. Alright, time to move on to the Wii remotes. First up is my black Wii remote with Wii Motion Plus inside. That's a mouthful, and as such, it's dubbed the Wii Remote Plus. It functions the same as a regular Wii remote, except it's slightly better with the built-in Wii Motion Plus. You can also get yourself the extension for Wiimotes that don't have the feature, which is what I did for one of my regular Wiimotes. In addition, I also have 3 white Wii remotes, and they function as well as you think they do. Now, I know technically the nunchuck is a peripheral for the Wii remote, but there are a lot of games that require its use, so I'm counting it as a controller. It's equipped with a control stick, a C button, and a Z button. The extension cord plugs into the bottom of the Wii remote. The only thing left to comment on with this is that, well, it looks like a dildo. Not even lying. I used to have 2, but not anymore. You can thank Uka Uka for that. Our final Wii controller we are checking out today is the good old classic controller. This thing was made primarily to play Virtual Console games, although you can use it on Wii games that support it. I honestly wouldn't recommend it. If you have the option to use a GameCube controller, do that. The oval shape definitely doesn't do it any favors either. I know the Classic Controller Pro exists, but I don't have one, nor do I want one. Jesus, we've gone through a lot of controllers, but we're not done yet. Onward now to the 8th generation, and here is my Xbox One controller. I have no comment. Okay, I'm kind of fibbing. The controller itself is pretty good. Now, this isn't one of the newer ones that utilizes Bluetooth. It's an old one with the 2.4 GHz connection. I don't really have much to say about this controller because I don't play my Xbox One that often. Anyway, let's move on to the PS4 controllers. This is a wired PS4 controller from TTX Champion. It can actually function as a PS3 controller as well, but it's advertised as a PS4 controller, so here it is. And it's very fragile. No, I'm serious. The right stick doesn't work properly after you so much as drop the fucking thing. And this is why third-party controllers suck. Okay, let's talk about the real thing. This is the DualShock 4. As you can see, it looks a bit wider compared to the previous two DualShocks, but it still fits comfortably in your hands. The most notable addition is this touchpad, which can be used as a cursor, but most of the time it's used as the select button. The touchpad also acts as a start and select for PS2 games, with select being a left click and start being a right click. By the way, the actual start button is called the options button. The new function is this share button. Pressing it allows you to record the last 10 or so minutes of your gameplay, as well as save/post a screenshot of your game. Neat. The directional buttons are noticeably different this time, and the triggers feel a bit more rounded. I have two of these. The black one came with my console, and the blue camo one I bought from GameStop. Brand new, not pre-owned, trust me. God, 6 more controllers, guys. We're nearing the light at the end of the tunnel. So let's keep going with the only Wii U controller I own. A third-party Pro controller from PDP. No, I don't count the gamepad as a controller. It's a forced peripheral that is used as a controller, and every chance I get, I avoid using it. For games like Mario Kart 8, I use this controller instead. It runs on 2 AA batteries, so you can't charge it. It feels really nice for the most part, and it functions okay, even with the slightly delayed input due to the Bluetooth connection. The sync button is located on the back of the controller, where you also have a button that turns the LED lights on or off. Ooh, it's nice and blue. I like it. There's even a red LED light that starts flashing when the batteries are running low. All in all, I think it's a passable controller, but I don't think it can replace the real thing. I have way too many third-party controllers. Speaking of which, we're still not done with them. Let's check out my Switch controllers. So my Joy-Con are at the point where I can't use them anymore, so instead I use these giant-ass red Joy-Con controllers from Hori. They were designed to be used in handheld mode, but I kinda have to use them for everything. They actually feel really nice, and the buttons are responsive. It's even equipped with turbo buttons for both controllers. I wish I was able to remap the buttons for these things, because it would be really nice to use the Z triggers in CTR. Anyway, let's move on to PDP's Face-Off Wired Pro controller. I got the one with the Starman faceplate. This controller does not work if it's not connected to the Switch via USB. It uses USB Type-C, and it's pretty cool. It's a great alternative to the real thing, especially since first-party controllers nowadays go for more than games. Like, what the fuck? Buttons feel kinda awkward though, and I still can't remap the buttons. Guess I'm not playing CTR with this thing either. Now check this out. This controller was made by PowerA. It's a Pro controller designed in the style of a GameCube controller, and it's honestly really one-to-one with the real GameCube controller. The main differences, of course, are the full set of start, select, capture, and home buttons in the middle, and the 2 Z trigger clones serving as the L and R triggers. And it's completely wireless, so it too runs on 2 AA batteries, and it's Bluetooth, just like all of Nintendo's other stuff. However, you still can't remap the controller's buttons. Man, sorry CTR. Other than that minor gripe, these are all really solid choices, and I can recommend them. And then there were 2 DualSense controllers for the PS5. This controller feels really nice. It's a DualShock 4, but better. It's got a built-in microphone, adaptive trigger vibrations, haptic feedback, and, well, that's it. But damn does it feel so fucking awesome to play games with. These come in multiple colors, but I was only able to get my hands on 2 white ones. One I bought, and the one that came with the console. Overall, this is a pretty decent collection of controllers if I do say so myself. Like I said all the way back at the beginning of this video, this could either increase or decrease over time. I must say, it's a pretty solid cornucopia of controllers, but it is missing a few noteworthy additions like original Xbox and Sega Dreamcast. Those controllers and their consoles will eventually find their way into my collection, but that's a task for another time. You may have noticed that on my channel, I recently re-uploaded the first 14 episodes of JuniorNitro, formerly known as John's Reviews, onto the channel you're on right now. The reason being because I deleted the original channel those reviews were on. One of those videos included in that collection was the one where I looked at both Wrath of Cortex and Crash Nitro Kart.
Why?
Since then, I revisited both games, and while I'm quite proud of the Wrath Van Calendar series from back in December 2019, I can't say the same for the one I made for Crash Nitro Kart. That video was a blatant copy and paste job of Jack's first CNK review, and I fucking hate it now. So I apologize, but I just cannot allow that video to be the one that represents how I feel about this game. In that video, I made a lot of references to my older reviews, and I threw my best friend under the bus. 2019, John, what the fuck were you thinking? But other than that, the rest of the video was just repeating everything Jack said. The part where I compared the tracks to that of CTR, the problem counter, the structure of the review itself, and even this inexcusable act of copying Jack's dead joke about making a brilliant game. That whole video was nothing but cringe. And please allow me to say this, but it was Jack's recent video on Twinsanity that made me want to go back to Nitro Kart to wrong those rights, and sweep the past under the rug. Twinsanity is another game I want to revisit, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. So with the new experience I've gained since that video, I just could not leave this stone unturned any longer, so let's return to this turbocharged extravaganza and give it the proper review that it deserves. As many of you already know, Nitro Kart was released in 2003 and developed by Vicarious Visions, who are known nowadays for developing the Crash and Tony Hawk remakes. To be honest, I wasn't necessarily dreading coming back to this game, given I never really thought the game was as bad as people made it out to be. The only reason why it received such criticism, in my opinion, is because of the game it sets itself up to be a successor for. As a result of all of its quirks, what was supposed to be a solid sequel ended up feeling more like a bootleg copy. So let's get into why exactly that is. This game has a simple yet effective plot, with the Bandicoots and bad guys being transported to a new galaxy by Emperor Velo the 27th. So we have our goal: race for the entertainment of millions or Earth will be destroyed. The objective is just like CTR. Win races to collect trophies and challenge the champion of each world. This time around, the game gives you a choice of 2 teams, with 3 playable characters each. This was a smart move if you ask me. Graphically, this game is one of the most beautiful in the series. I've said it in the past, but it is still impressive for a 2003 game. It's no Going Commando, but still. And as random as the boss characters are, I won't lie, I do like how unique all of their personalities are. The soundtrack is an interesting topic. While some people love it, a lot also hate the fucking thing. I tend to fall in the middle. While it's not the greatest, it's still pretty good, and I'll even argue it's memorable. Shit, the fucking theme song is a certified banger. I love it. Of course, however, all racing games live or die by the control. Here is where the positives for this game end. I'm not gonna try and sugarcoat this. While the control isn't the worst I've played, it does not hold a candle to CTR, and that is a major problem. Compared to that game, CNK feels extremely clunky, especially when you enter an anti-gravity section. These are the most jagged parts of the game. It's no wonder Nintendo waited 11 years. Intriguing, yes, but very flawed. The core mechanics are so flawed, my Christ. Constantly, I catch moments where the game is having a fucking seizure and has no idea what to do. This might be a PS2 problem, as I don't seem to have these problems on Xbox or GameCube, but still, shit like this should not be happening. You can get yourself stuck inside objects. And remember the boss characters? Well, you can't play as any of them. In CTR, this was possible, so there's no excuses here. Speaking of the bosses, again, Velo's race is probably one of the most difficult things about this game, combined with the janky controls. If you don't know how to utilize the boost mechanic in this game, or rather lack thereof, you are not winning this race. As hard as it may be to believe for a lot of people, this game's boost mechanic does have a reserve system, but it is nowhere near as game-breaking as CTR. As a result, holy shit guys, this game feels like an absolute drag in comparison. It doesn't help that the PS2 version takes about 15 to 20 seconds to load. It may not sound like a lot, but when the game needs to load as often as it does, they all add up. There's a loading screen for the adventure hub, one for the track, one for the podium, and then another one for the hub. That's over a minute of loading, which is just unacceptable. To be honest though, despite everything we've covered in this video, I still find myself revisiting this every so often. Many will question why, but there's just something about it that gets me to come back to it. After all, average games always fall under the cliche of playing the game for yourself and deciding then. Wait, average? Oh man! Yeah, this game is average. That is just unacceptable for a kart racer. For starters, the amount of times you see callbacks to CTR tracks is too often for my liking. Inferno Island, Tiny Temple, Clockwork Wumpa, they all copy different assets from that game. Shit, the 90-degree turns in Assembly Lane are just the ones from Engine Labs, inverted to make it look different. Reminds me of the last time I reviewed this game. Apparently there was going to be an option to play some CTR tracks that were rebuilt from the ground up. But it seems to me that Vicarious Visions looked at what they already had and said, nah, that would have been redundant. Also, there is a huge lack of content here compared to CTR. CTR has a total of 18 tracks and 7 battle arenas, whereas Nitro Kart has 13 tracks and 5 battle arenas. Remember, CTR was released in 1999, and CNK was released in 2003. CTR, by default, has more content to offer on an older system, so there are simply no excuses here. In fact, now that I think about it, the track count could have been nearly doubled if Team Cortex went to 4 completely different worlds. Think about it, right? In both teams' opening cutscenes, Velo says they race across 4 worlds of his choosing. So why does he send Cortex and his cronies to the same 4 worlds as the Bandicoots? It would have been so unique to see 4 new worlds in this game, giving us 12 more tracks, bringing the total up to 25. And imagine the new personalities those world championships would have. Maybe Big Norm goes on to claim a world championship of his own, and we race him. Team Cortex could be the hard mode of the game, where the track designs really test your skills, and the AI is a lot more aggressive, meaning you and your teammate won't be blowing everybody else out of the fucking water. Cortex's adventure mode could encourage you to get better at the game, and therefore make the victory against Velo that much more satisfying. Dude, I just made this an instant fucking classic. See what I mean here? So much potential left with no substance whatsoever. One last thing I would like to mention, and this is very minor, but it still bums me out. This is also apparent in CTR. The extra 4th members of each team do not show up in any race after unlocking them. That's incredibly disappointing. This often makes me forget that Purah is even in the game, and the same goes for Fake Crash and Entropy. It would have been really nice to see them in the races, seeing that hard work pay off. But, like I said, it's a little gripe. If you were to judge this game as its own kart racer, it honestly isn't that bad. However, as a follow-up to one of the greatest, if not the greatest kart racer of all time, this is a sad younger brother that failed to receive the love and attention it was so desperate for. And even now, we live in a timeline where there is literally no incentive towards revisiting Nitro Kart, when the nitro-fueled remake of CTR exists. That game has every character, track, battle arena, and kart from CNK, and the controls are far superior. Honestly, all that game needed was the adventure mode, and Nitro Kart would have been left in the rear view mirror much faster than it was. And for that reason, Crash Nitro Kart was just completely forgotten. So forgotten, in fact, that when Big Velo came back in the final CTRNF Grand Prix, they didn't even know how to fucking pronounce his name. Man, that really sucks. With all of this said, hopefully it's clear why Crash Nitro Kart will never be able to escape that 5 out of 10 purgatory. Now, let's take a look at the GBA port of this game, as it has received some praise. This game removes all of those stupid quirks that plagued the console version. Team races and anti-gravity have been scrapped in favor of providing solid controls and pleasing visuals. By the Game Boy Advance's standards, anyway. The models have been ported from the consoles, and they actually look really nice. The tracks have been altered slightly, but they're still pretty good. Some of them are even played in reverse. However, this results in some tracks, like Out of Time, being a bit difficult to navigate, but these hiccups are far and few between. This lineup of characters is much better too. Instead of Zem and Zam, we get the privilege of playing as the boss characters after we beat them. I love how you unlock Fake Crash in this game. Instead of getting 50 consecutive boosts as Team Cortex in Adventure Mode, you instead drive out of bounds and find him on the outskirts of Out of Time. That is so fucking cool, and I feel like other racing games should try this. Plus, Spyro makes a cameo in this game. Fucking awesome. Now here is my favorite thing in this game. This is the final track. It's different from Hyper Spaceway. This track combines different parts of Tiny Temple, Barren Ruins, Out of Time, and Electron Avenue to create a pretty fucking epic track. The cheats you can unlock add another element of fun to the overall experience. This is one of those very rare occasions where the GBA port is actually better than its console counterparts. There aren't that many games that can say that, so while it is impressive, that means that you should be ashamed of yourself. Nitro Kart on GBA is a very fun time, and it even has a secret minigame called Crash Party, which you can access if you hold down both triggers while the game is booting up. Yeah, this isn't the greatest thing in the world, but it's still neat. I can confidently say that Crash Nitro Kart on the Game Boy Advance gets 5 out of 10. And remember, a GBA game getting a 5 out of 10 score means it is worth your time. Unlike a 5 out of 10 on console.
What a hoot! Only you knew!
Bounce, and bounce, and bounce all the time. More bounce, and more bounceroo.
Oh, one more time!
Bounce, and bounce, and bounce all the time. More bounce, and more bounceroo. You know, I've had a real itch in the back of my head. Ah, that's better. But for real, these 3 games have been staring back at me, and it's been a whopping 6 years since I covered them back when I started making these reviews. I do not like any of those videos. For starters, Crash 1 wasn't even a review, so during my journey of revisiting old reviews, I think it makes sense that we go back and wrong those rights, and sweep the past under the rug. I said that last episode, didn't I? So let's dive into the original Crash Bandicoot trilogy released between 1996 and 1998 for the Sony PlayStation. I've been looking forward to this. No joke, guys. This was a long time coming because these are the first 3 reviews I ever made, and boy did it fucking show. I've been wanting to revisit this trilogy since the first time I covered the Insane remakes, and that's another video I don't really like anymore. I mean, what the fuck was I doing with my voice? It's pure fucking cringe, and I don't recommend you watch it. Not only that, but it will also give me the opportunity to give the very first game of my favorite video game franchise the proper review that it rightfully deserves. To put it in perspective, that first review was uploaded in August of 2015. Those were some seriously dark times. So I think it is that time that we take a proper dive into the trilogy that started everything. So without any further delay, let's take a look at Cash Banuka's humble beginnings. September 1996. Gas was $1.23, Blue's Clues aired for the first time, Nintendo gave us its three-pronged mistake, Bill Clinton ended nuclear bomb testing, the Yankee dynasty was getting underway, I was less than 2 years from being born, and third-party developers Naughty Dog released Crash Bandicoot for the Sony PlayStation. Given that it was Sony's answer to the platforming juggernauts Super Mario and Sonic the Hedgehog at the time, it's no surprise this furry marsupial became the face of the brand. As of this script being written, the original PS1 game has sold nearly 7 million units worldwide. That's a pretty big deal for a 1996 game, especially since it's on the powerhouse system that dominated the 5th generation. This game holds a very special place in the hearts of millions, as it practically got people into PlayStation gaming back in 1996. At the time, it was a revolution to see the classic Mario formula warped into a 3D world, with the ability to move in any direction rather than just left or right. However, as the years go by and the sequels continue to improve the established entity, Crash Bandicoot just kind of became a distant memory. And why is that? Well, let's pop it in and find out. The plot is very basic, and to be quite honest, it's pretty forgettable. I mean, you have to wait for the fucking thing to load at the title screen. A pair of evil scientists named Cortex and Brio construct an army of mutated marsupial animals, with Crash serving as the general. The vortex malfunctions and Crash flees the lab. However, he has to find a way back because who's next in line? That's right, Crash's girlfriend, named Tawna Bandicoot. And so your journey begins. First impressions, I gotta say, these graphics are still great for the console. Definitely revolutionary for the time. The goal for this game is very simple. Navigate platforming levels from point A to point B and proceed to the next level, occasionally fighting bosses along the way. The gameplay is very simple, but it is effective. But of course, how this game controls determines whether or not it holds up. The control in this game is pretty flawed. There are only 2 levels in this game that incorporate vehicular control, the hog levels. The hog feels incredibly cumbersome to steer. Movement needs to be precise in these levels, so they might take a few tries if you're going for completion. Momentum is unpredictable in a lot of cases. For example, if you spin right before landing a jump, your spin momentum is carried over until the animation ends, regardless of whether you let go of the D-pad or not. This can cause a ton of deaths, which will piss you off if you go for completion in this game. For 100% completion, there are 26 gems and 2 keys. In order to obtain a gem in a level, you must make it to the end, breaking every single box, without dying a single time after you make it to the first checkpoint. After breaking that checkpoint, dying at all negates your chance at the gem, meaning you have to back out to the map and start the level all over again. By the way, the boxes in the bonus rounds do not count. Bonus rounds exist, and there are 3 different types. First, there's the Tawna ones, which are your basic bonus rounds, and they also serve as another save point. We'll get to the save system later. Next, there's Brio's bonus rounds. These are expert versions of Tawna's bonuses, but they really only serve as a chance to get more lives because Brio doesn't even let you save. Finally, there's the Cortex bonuses, and there are only 2 of these. If you make it to the end, Cortex drops a key that'll grant you access to the 2 secret levels. Now let me talk about this save system. It's easily one of the worst, if not the worst thing about this game. Here's how it works. You can only save your game if you A. Collect a gem, B. Steal Cortex's keys, or C. Make it to the end of Tawna's bonus. Level progression is not saved at all. This means that you could game over 3 levels in and have to restart from the first goddamn level. Yeah, I said this was fucking shit. Now, one thing I do want to discuss in regards to level design is that you're not supposed to speedrun any of these levels. They were designed in a stop-and-go traffic kind of way. Patience is key, as that was the original intent. However, when you start letting the game get the better of you, and you start trying to blaze through it as quickly as possible out of complete frustration, this game is going to fucking punish you. This is one of the hardest games in the entire series to complete. That's why these days, it's incredibly difficult to recommend. Two levels that immediately come to mind are Sunset Vista and Slippery Climb. They are by far the two longest levels in the game, and they will test your patience. The soundtrack for this game was composed by Josh Mansell, and it sounds really good. Now let's talk about the bosses. Don't worry, I'll keep this brief. They're either easy, boring, or both. The bosses include Papu Papu, Ripperoo, Koala Khan, Pinstripe Potaroo, Nitrous Brio, and Ned Climax himself. Once you beat him, you rescue Tana, the airship flies off into the sunset, and you're done. Fun fact, you can actually beat this game without even confronting Cortex. Collecting all 26 gems and both keys allows you to access the alternate route in the Great Hall. This takes you straight to Tana, where she and Crash ride a bird out of the castle, and you get little where are they now anecdotes for each boss, including Cortex. This is pretty neat, and I have a soft spot for these. So in conclusion, Crash Bandicoot is great for a few minutes, but then it quickly becomes dreadful.
I would give it about a 7.
Do not listen to anything he says. And it doesn't help matters when you consider the shitty save system and the completion difficulty. Nowadays it is immensely overshadowed by its successors, and that's just how it goes. To the surprise of no one, this game just does not hold up to that 7 out of 10 score. In all honesty, it never did. What the fuck were you thinking, 17-year-old John? Crash Bandicoot gets 5 out of 10. Cash Banuka 2 Gringotts Steakhouse, released on Halloween of 1997 for the Sony PlayStation. Revisiting Crash 2 is always refreshing thanks to the pleasant charm it has. The story immediately follows the end of Crash 1, with Cortex falling from his airship after being defeated. In his sight when he falls is a power crystal. The next year, his new assistant Engine informs Cortex that there are 25 crystals scattered around the world, and with no more inside help, Cortex will have to fool Crash into aiding him in his quest for world domination. Meanwhile, Crash wakes up to retrieve a laptop battery for Coco. Yeah, she was just kinda shoehorned in as a replacement for Tana. However, instead of being Crash's new girlfriend, she is his sister. The reason why Tana was removed was because
a bunch of soccer moms
thought she was a sex symbol. Hey, it was the 90s. People thought this chipmunk was hot. Some people still do. So, whatever. We go to get the battery and oh my god, we're being teleported elsewhere. And here we have the warp room. Cortex gives us more context on what's going on, but here's the biggest flaw with the storytelling. If you wanted your audience to believe Cortex is good, why would you show him devising his plan? And better yet, why would you call the game Cortex Strikes Back? Oh, who the fuck cares? Everything else in this game has everything you loved about the first game, but 10 times better. For starters, you have the ability to save whenever you want, and you can even enter a name for the save file, so I decided to call myself Wilmog for this video. Please don't ask why. The warp room gives you 5 levels to venture through, so if you ever find yourself stuck on one of the levels, you can come back to it at a later point and try another level instead. Now this game has some of the tightest controls I've ever felt in a platformer. Every movement feels precise, and any death is on you. The game encourages you to learn all the new techniques that Crash has at his disposal. Using the circle button, you can now crouch, slide jump, high jump, slide spin, and belly flop. And can I just say that this game is filled to the brim with personality? I mean, the graphics are one thing, but look at some of the NPCs, and look at all the different death animations. It gives the game that character that Crash 1 kinda lacked, if you ask me. In addition to crystals, you can also collect the gems returning from Crash 1. They are much easier to collect as you don't have to worry about not dying. The gems can be collected by accessing secrets and breaking every box in the level. The boxes in the bonus rounds now contribute to the box gem, giving them a purpose this time. You don't need tokens anymore, just look for the question mark. The color gems have a unique way of being collected. I'll give just one example. In the very first level, Turtle Woods, You can obtain the blue gem if you don't break a single box. The game even gives you a slight hint. If you revisit the level after grabbing the crystal and box gem and you break a box prior to reaching the goal, the box counter will show you your current box total out of 0, which is pretty cool. And if you refuse to collect the crystal, Cortex will inform you on how disappointed he is, even going as far as to show you what the crystal looks like. If you start collecting gems, you'll be greeted by Brio, who has a beef with Cortex, and can help you with thwarting his plans once you obtain all 42 gems. In this game, a deathless run still has its incentives. In most of the later levels, if you reach a certain point without dying, you can access a death route, and at the end of it is another gem. There are also 5 secret exits that unlock secret entrances for other levels, and even 2 extra levels, Totally Bear and Totally Fly. These are dark as shit. Speaking of the secrets, man, were Naughty Dog good at hiding these. I'm not going to spoil any for those who haven't played the game yet, as I encourage you to find them yourself. Once you complete every level in the warp room, you fight a boss, then proceed to the next warp room. The bosses are Ripper Roo, the Komodo Brothers, Tiny Tiger, Engine, and Cortex. Every single boss in this game is fucking easy. The final boss in particular, Jesus Christ, the fucking state of it. You use a jetpack to chase Cortex down and spin into him 3 times. That's it. It's a pretty fucking weak boss fight, really. If you collect everything in the game, you can take the gems to Brio, and then using his weapon, you can fire a giant laser and shoot down Cortex's spaceship. Hey look, Crash 2 was made with Silicon Graphics computers. George Wood would be proud. I feel like the story was a bit of an afterthought because while it isn't necessarily the greatest, in the grand scheme, the game's overall performance more than makes up for it, which is the main reason why a lot of people still come back to this game.
This is my pee-pee. This is my pee-pee. This is my pee-pee. This is my pee-pee. This is my pee-pee.
There's just something about this game that always finds a way to suck you in, which is great. It set out to accomplish what it needed to as a sequel, and that was to be better than the original. And even with its easy bosses, it manages to do just that, while also becoming a fucking masterpiece that was truly ahead of its time. I can confidently say that Crash Bandicoot 2 Cortex Strikes Back still, after all this time, holds up to that 8 out of 10 score. And if the final boss was better, this would easily get a 9, no question. But take that away and this game is still a ton of fun. And it is a game I highly recommend. Exactly 1 year after the release of Crash 2, we got Warped. This is the game where Naughty Dog was really starting to push its luck with the series. The story picks up where the 100% ending of Crash 2 left off. Cortex's ship crashes into the underground prison of Aku Aku's evil twin, Uka Uka. Fed up with Cortex, he hires the Time Master known as Nefarious Tropy, who invents the Time Twister machine. So our goal is to use the machine to grab the time crystals before Cortex and his cronies. What's my name this time? How about... by Puntan? Yeah, that'll work. The level design in this game is the same as the previous 2. So long as you stay patient, this is a relatively easy game. However, if you start rushing, you will be punished. And there's one particular collectible in this game that rewards such aggression, but we'll get to that later. Graphically, if you thought Crash 2 looked beautiful, you have not fucking seen Crash Bandicoot Warped. Every level is gorgeous from top to bottom. The control in this game feels just as good as it did in the last game, only fine-tuned just a bit. So I won't spend too much time talking about it because there's something else that needs our attention. That being the immense amount of vehicles. There's no denying that there are quite a lot compared to the predecessors. However, I think people blow this way out of proportion because the majority of these vehicles have really good controls, so for the most part, they add to the experience. Now, this does not excuse the fact that there should not have been so many levels that include a vehicle. It gets really tiring really quick. Thankfully, the bosses have been greatly improved. They still have their flaws, but they are much better than in the previous installments. Alright, I think I've talked about everything else in this game long enough. I know you guys aren't going to let me off the hook without talking about a certain collectible in this game. Let's talk about those damn time relics.
They are a death sentence. A one-way ticket to hell. It is the possible cause of a total damnation on this planet.
Who is this and why are you still listening to him? Well, I 0% agree with whatever that guy said, because these days I actually have a newfound respect for the relics. People will argue that they just pad the game out and they are an absolute nuisance, and I understand that, and for the longest time I was one of those people. But not anymore. They are a welcoming challenge, and they force you to approach the level differently, and I like them. If you're not going for the platinum relics. These things are a huge pain in the ass. You need to know everything about every level in order to have all 30 relics be platinum, like me. It was stressful, but I managed to do it, and it was one of my greatest gaming accomplishments. By the way, the two easiest platinum relics in this game are the ones for the two very secret levels hidden in other levels, Hot Cocoa and Oedipus Rex. I figured out why that is. In only the NTSC-U version of Warped, there is a programming bug that incorrectly loads the times for Dynamite when you enter Oedipus Rex, and Road Crash when you enter Hot Cocoa. Nobody knows exactly why this happens, and this is the reason why those two platinum relics are the easiest ones to get. Oh, and FYI, you don't actually need the platinum relics for completion. You can actually just go for Sapphire, which are by far the easiest ones, in order to get the true ending. The platinum relics only serve as something to have for bragging rights, so attempt them at your own risk. They require a combination of skill and luck. So while Warped really started pushing its luck with the amount of vehicles it had to offer, it still performed really well, and in all honesty, now that I'm a much wiser man these days, I can confidently say that despite all the gimmicky shit, this game sits on par with Crash 2. Even if you're someone who prefers 2 to Warped, which is still me, make no mistake, you cannot deny that this game was a fantastic finale to the trilogy. For all those reasons, I am happily bumping this game's score up from a 7 out of 10 to an 8 out of 10.
Now, you may or may not know this, but
Turn this person down. Say, don't listen to him. He's a nonce.
So, it has been 6 years since the last time I covered Crash Bash on the channel. And the one thing that absolutely boggles me is that I had the audacity to give this game a 6 out of 10. Yeah, in case you didn't watch the last few episodes, those were very dark times. So I think now is a great time to do yet another revisit, but this one has been a long time coming, like the last ones. Also, my opinion has changed, hence why I wanted to return to it. Because this game, for as fun as it is as a multiplayer game, is a mediocre, headache-inducing clusterfuck. The story sees Aku Aku and Uka Uka arguing like an old married couple, and Uka Uka wants to start fighting, but Aku Aku shoves him off and tells him that they can't because
the ancients would not allow it.
Even though they were fighting back in Warp, so what the fuck gives? Also, who the fuck are the ancients? Well, I don't know who they are. Nor do I care. Anyway, Crash and friends are then forced into a series of games that will answer the question of who is better. Not even getting into the game, and already nothing here makes sense. Why the hell are Tiny and Dingodile good guys? Why doesn't Brio join us? He was an anti-hero in Crash 2, so why not make him a good guy? And who the fuck is this? Why Gorilla Monkey Anus Face over... oh, I don't know. Entropy? Oh, whatever. It doesn't make sense, but this whole thing doesn't make any fucking sense, so let's just begin. Okay, let's begin a new save file. What should my name be? Ami-Yumi. Because that's what this game's mediocrity is reminding me of. And if you're reminding me of that, you're fucked. So the first warp room contains 4-way pawn, last man standing, pogos, and combat. The second warp room contains 4-way pawn, last man standing, pogos, combat, and tanks. The third warp room contains 4-way pawn, last man standing, pogos, combat, tanks, and racing. The fourth warp.
I think you get the idea.
Now let me tell you the one major problem with this game that just boils my demented teapot. This game's adventure mode is way too repetitive. For starters, the trophy challenge requires one of you to win the minigame 3 times, which then gets even more repetitive if you lose a round.
I didn't even know you could do that in this minigame.
The other challenges are for crystals, gems, and relics. The gem challenge has you win the minigame with either fewer hits or a shorter time limit. The crystal challenge has you win the minigame with the AI having an unfair handicap. Then we have the relic challenges, where you win the minigame 2 or 3 times in a row against really fucking difficult AI. Speaking of which, get ready, because the third warp room kicks that shit into high gear, and it's only gonna get harder from here. If there's one thing I could change here, it would be to have the trophy challenge only require you to win the minigame once. And regarding the relics, how about instead of winning the rounds in a row, just win 2 rounds or 3 rounds, because the AI in these is so fucking brutal. Anyway, let's briefly touch on the bosses. They are Papu Papu, the Polar Boss, the Komodo Brothers, and Nitrous Oxide. My god, Oxide is a pain in the fucking cock. You will not beat him on your first attempt.
So that's about it for this game's adventure mode, but if you don't mind, I'm gonna start doing some bitching.
Why are trophies the main collectibles when Aku Aku tells us we need to protect the crystals we won? Why does Papu Papu not give me the satisfaction of finishing him off and just take his life by crushing himself? Why does this game suddenly become fucking impossible in the third warp room? Why do I need a friend in order to make any progress? Furthermore, what if my friend blows chunks? Who the fuck believed a 5-year-old would be able to do any of this? This is fucking ridiculous!
Want to know how inexplicably difficult this game is? One time back in 2016, I attempted to get the crystal from N-ballism. I spent a total of 4 hours non-stop, and I still wasn't able to win. Now, I'm not that great at this game, but I shouldn't have to be a fucking expert esports veteran in order to beat the fucking thing. And it sucks too, because you need to go through this adventure mode in order to unlock all the minigames. Otherwise, you have only 4 minigames with 4 different skins. And that's it. And there's no way to cheat unless you live in Europe and you have a first edition of this game, which is the non-platinum version. However, we do have something called memory manipulation.
By going to the save screen, highlighting the letter V, and pressing down and left at the same time, you can force the cursor to go out of bounds. Then, by entering a specific sequence of directions on the D-pad, you can break this game in half. However, this also has its hindrances, like right here. The timer jumps from 1 minute to 5 seconds. Just when I was about to finally get this gold relic,
You fail.
Coco tied me at the very last fucking second. Here you can see this shit in action, and it allows you to beat Oxide within 57 minutes. Fucking wow. All of these setbacks make this game so goddamn mediocre to the point where I just cannot recommend it. If you want to kill some time with your friends, the game is kind of fun, but there's really not a lot here to keep everybody engaged, and the graphics in this game are a far cry from its predecessors. I get that this game was developed by Eurocom, but that's still no excuse. So with all of this tedious and repetitive madness, I have no choice but to give Crash Bash a 4 out of 10. I don't say 3 because the game isn't entirely bad, but the adventure mode does not do it any favors.
Okay, so if there's anybody out there who has the Black Label PAL version, there is a more straightforward cheat code you can enter in the main menu, which is something us NTSC users don't have access to. Unless we have Spyro 3.
Yes, in Spyro 3 you can hold L1 and R2 and then press square to access the hidden Crash Bash demo. Then inputting the cheat code will unlock the debug menu, granting you access to practically the entire game. You are missing Oxide Ride and the last Warp Room's minigames, but you have everything else, including the boss fight against Homer and Bart Simpson. The cheat code was discovered 9 years after the game's release by Crashmania users LX Shadow and Hack. So imagine how much of an impact this would have had on the game's sales if it was discovered back in 2000 instead.
What a lot of people don't know is that there's an older demo of this game that also has this cheat menu. It is on certain demo discs, and it requires a Game Shark and some codes in order to access it.
If you entered this code into your Game Shark, switch to a demo disc that contains Crash Bash. Select the demo, then when it loads, simply enter the code again, and voila! This grants you access to every, and I mean every minigame in all of their unfinished glory. You get to see Cortex's billboard in Space Bash, fight the polar boss at Oil Ocean, find out that Oxide Ride was originally going to be a two-parter, play a completely different K-Kaboom, and find out that Engine Ship was originally piss-colored.
While we're on the topic, can I briefly talk about how much I love the music on this demo disc? Also, the fact that I find this more entertaining than the final product says a lot about the quality of this game, doesn't it?
This shouldn't come as a surprise to anybody, but I really do not want to see this game get remade. It does not deserve it. Let this shit die with whatever dignity it has left.
In conclusion, Crash Bash is one of the most mediocre games I've ever played, and it's also one of the hardest games I've ever played. And that's never a good combination. Do I still come back to this game every so often? Of course, because I like going in and playing Space Bash with Brio. However, if you don't have friends to play this game with, don't even bother. I would play Mario Party instead. Here's an out-of-left-field video for you all. Let's do another ranked video.
Do you remember the one I made for the Crash games I reviewed back in Season 3? Well, this one is on the Guitar Hero games, more specifically the Xbox 360 titles.
So, grab your plastic 5-button guitar and put on your JuniorNitro t-shirt that you bought on Spring using the link in the description. Yeah, I'm selling out, suck it, as we go on a journey through the world of Guitar Hero.
Now, before we go through the list, let me go over the ground rules. As always, this list is based on my opinion. The games will be ranked based on overall quality, i.e. set list, guitar chart quality, and sound integrity. So, what games are included in the list? Guitar Hero 2, 3, Aerosmith, World Tour, Metallica, Smash Hits, 5, Band Hero, Van Halen, and Warriors of Rock. If you're wondering why insert game here is not included, it's likely for one of the following reasons. 1, we all know how poorly the first game has aged, so I'll spare it. 2, I've never played it. 3, I can't and won't compare console to handheld. And finally, because nobody fucking cares. Now, this video is not going to go incredibly in-depth with every game. Instead, I'm just going to give a brief synopsis along with my overall thoughts. Also, these games include licensed music, so I'll be using Crash OST metal covers by Tokultan and Whiplashed, in addition to songs from the YouTube audio library, courtesy of Ethan Mikesell. The artists will be linked down below.
Now that we've got all that squared away, it's time to begin going through these games and rank them all from worst to best, in my opinion. So, which one is the worst of them all? Number 10 goes to...
Yeah, this shouldn't come as a surprise to anybody. At the time, it certainly was innovative, but the problems that plagued the first game were still apparent in Guitar Hero 2. This game has a very solid set list with memorable hits like Psychobilly Freakout, Sweet Child of Mine, Stop, John the Fisherman, Freebird, Beeson the Harlot, Trogdor, and Jordan to name a few. However, that does not save the game from being pretty flawed. Back in 2006, it definitely was a must-have, but now you have other options. I would just skip this one in my opinion. Okay, we're off to a good start. For this game, my copy doesn't even work anymore. That pretty much sums up Guitar Hero Van Halen. So, we gotta borrow some gameplay from this guy. This was the 5th and final Guitar Hero game released in 2009, yes, and it was developed by Underground Development, who are known for developing Guitar Hero Van Halen. Ugh, one of those games, huh? I'll admit, it is really cool to see the real Van Halen in the game via motion capture, and it's also really cool that you can play all 3 of Eddie's solos. The biggest problem with this game, however, is the way the guest setlist was handled. Now, I stand by what Harmonix did with band-specific Rock Band games. This is what happens when you prioritize the guest setlist over the band you're basing the game around. Van Halen feels like an afterthought here, Like they were looking for a band that would sell copies because of who they are. At least with Aerosmith and Metallica, they let the bands choose the songs they wanted to include, but in this game, you can't tell me Van Halen wanted Judas Priest, or Weezer, or Killswitch Engage, or fucking Tenacious D. This is the Virgin Painkiller chart. They fucking cut out the drum solo at the beginning of the song. You know, the best part? Yeah, this game is average at best and fucking abysmal at worst. Hard pass. This game is essentially just World Tour, only with master recordings of songs from the previous Guitar Hero games. The setlist contains songs from 1, 2, 3, 80s, and Aerosmith. The game was primarily developed by Beanox, who are known today as the developers of CTR Nitro Fueled. The list is pretty good with songs like Killing in the Name, Play With Me, Message in a Bottle, Stellar, The Trooper, Through the Fire and Flames, and more. It caters to fans of Supernatural by including Carry On Wayward Son, and Billy and Mandy fans with Round and Round. I don't really have much else to say, as I'm saving some of it for when we get to World Tour, so let's move on to the number 7 game. Before anyone asks, yes, I made Puffy Amiyumi, Mr. Glitch, and myself as custom characters, shut up. The original intent for Band Hero was to appeal to a slightly younger audience than the traditional games. As such, the setlist is rather tame, although there are still some good songs in here like ABC, I Want You to Want Me, Paralyzer, When I'm Gone, and Mr. Roboto. This game includes guest appearances from Maroon 5's Adam Levine, Taylor Swift, and No Doubt, the only full band in Guitar Hero history to appear in a game as a guest. This game is fine, I guess. While it's not the best, I still play it every so often. Guitar Hero Aerosmith just barely misses the top 5 here. The game was the first in the series to primarily focus on one band. If you told me that this was a fan-made mod for Guitar Hero 3, I honestly would believe you because that's all this is. Though there are some hits like Love in an Elevator, Ragdoll, Kings and Queens, Sweet Emotion, Dream On, and Walk This Way, both original and the Run DMC mix. This is a pretty good game, but most of that credit goes to GH3. At least the cheat codes require you to play an actual guitar riff, from songs that aren't even by Aerosmith. Nice one, guys. Good God, Steven Tyler, what the hell did they do to you? Yes, I made Billy and Mandy in this game too. That's not important. I'm gonna be completely honest. Guitar Hero 5's setlist is pretty weak compared to the rest of the series, but based on the core engine, this game is still better than the aforementioned installments. You got songs like You Give Love a Bad Name, Rain of Fire, Song 2, Under Pressure, The Rock Show, and Bullet with Butterfly Wings, to name a few. This was the first game in the series to have the iconic Hypersphere venue. It was also the first to run on Neversoft's new engine, which allowed for chords to be hammered on and pulled off. This game isn't a personal favorite of mine, but it's still pretty good. Check it out sometime. Now, Guitar Hero World Tour has received mixed reviews, and for good reason. It was clearly Neversoft's answer to Harmonix's Rock Band. As a result, the game ended up being a bit of a mess. I mean, there's a lot of times in which you will be playing a note that doesn't even exist. However, we have to give this game props for doing something nobody else has been able to do as of today. They included Tool songs. Parabola, Schism, and Vicarious were featured in this game with their own venue inspired by the artwork of Tool's albums. Fucking cool. The rest of the setlist is pretty solid too. Also, so many artists make cameos. Billy Corgan from Smashing Pumpkins, Travis Barker from Blink-182, Zakk Wylde, Ted Nugent, Hayley Williams from Paramore, Sting, Jimi Hendrix, and Ozzy Osbourne all appear in this game. These certainly hold the game up, but it still gets brought down by the quality and authenticity of the charts. Plus, Sting looks like he will kill me in my sleep. Still, solid game overall. No doubt, fans aren't going to be too pleased about Guitar Hero 3 being this low on the list. Well, that's life. Deal with it. I can definitely see why the game is so universally loved, but it still has its problems. While the engine was improved upon by Neversoft, it is still flawed. The set list is incredibly memorable, including songs like Bulls on Parade, Welcome to the Jungle, Before I Forget, One, Raining Blood, and of course, Through the Fire and Flames. The game even included guitar battles against Tom Morello, Slash, and Satan. Aerosmith also had one at the end of the game against Joe Perry. I still enjoy my time with this game, and it's one I can recommend, but in my opinion, it's not the best game in the series, nor is it my favorite. It's definitely up there, though. Yep, Guitar Hero Metallica comes in at number 2. This game just somehow got it right. They made it about Metallica with the guest list being picked by them. The charts are really accurate and the presentation is great. The game even includes guest appearances from King Diamond and the late Lemmy. The set list is arguably the strongest in the series. On the guest side, you've got Mother of Mercy, Toxicity, The Boys Are Back in Town, Turn the Page, War Ensemble, Stone Cold Crazy, Ace of Spades, and Evil. On the Metallica side, you got One, Master of Puppets, Seek and Destroy, Sanitarium, Battery, Merciful Fate, Fuel, and King Nothing. My absolute favorite thing about this game is the fact that they included a video that shows Lars' outtakes for Shortest Straw.
You and your bright ideas.
I also love this video where they showcase Metallica shrines that fans have been able to put together. It makes me wish they did more of these. It felt like a love letter to not just Metallica fans, but to all Guitar Hero fans. That's why I have this game at number 2.
You're not recording, are you? You're not recording, are you?
And so we're at that part of the video where we have just one game left. Were you able to narrow it down? I might be in the minority on this one, but I don't care. This is, in my opinion, the best game in the entire Guitar Hero series. So without any further delay, here is number 1.
Guitar Hero Warriors of Rock. I fucking love this game. The quest mode is by far the best thing about this game. It tells the tale of two entities fighting for the fate of rock. Warriors must be unleashed and retrieve the legendary guitar in order to save the demigod, defeat the beast, and restore the natural order of things. With me on top. The set list is the most diverse out of the entire series, with 8 rockers having their own distinct personalities and therefore their own genre of music they like to play. Without question, the best thing in this game is the midway point, where you find the cave that has the legendary guitar. There you play the entirety of Rush 2112, with the story being narrated by the members of Rush. This was fucking mind-blowing back in 2010, and it is still my favorite thing to do when I play this game. The final battle is also really good, where you play Megadeth songs, including one that Dave Mustaine wrote for the game, Sudden Death. In my opinion, Neversoft did a fantastic job with this game. It served as a wonderful finale to the series, and it just simply will not be beat.
And with that, the list is complete. Obviously, your list isn't going to be the same as mine, so be sure to post it in the comments down below. As for the future of Guitar Hero games, while I don't see one anytime soon, considering how well Live did, it would be nice to see the series make a proper comeback, going back to the traditional 5-button layout that we're all familiar with. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And there's one band I know that could benefit from having their own Guitar Hero game. That's right. Stump! Anyway, I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, hit that like button to leave a like and share it around with your friends. Thank you for watching, and until Season 6, my name is JuniorNitro. Fueling your adrenaline, one video at a time.